Hey, everybody, and welcome back to For the Booze.
For the booze, yay, from underneath a blanket in the living room, like we are squatters in an apartment that we don't belong in a place that we've never been to, yay.
Yeah, we're still waiting on our stuff from the movers. We got a call. They should be here within the week, so
Yes.
yeah.
So we're finally going to get our stuff back. I got to wake up from a nap and get this information. So if you're out there and you're listening and you'd like to support the show, make sure you never ever use National Moving Company. Or what was the name of the other place that's had our stuff captive for a month now?
Infinity Moving Solutions.
There you go. Never ever use them because they're terrible. Leave a review for them too and let them know how they've affected the podcast. But anyways, moving on.
Well, wait until we get our stuff, and then you can leave a review.
I don't even care about that anymore. But this week, we are unfortunately not going to do listener stories again because we don't have our stuff still, but should be by the next one, hopefully. But we are going to do another local haunted story. And this is a place that I've never heard of, and I'm pretty sure you've never heard of.
No, I've never heard of it.
But we are sticking to Utah. This is, I believe, more southern Utah, though. And we are going to go to a little place that actually no longer exists anymore. And it's the place called
Spring Canyon.
That's right, Spring Canyon, Utah. And it is officially now considered a ghost town that you can actually go and visit. And apparently there's still a few things left over from like the mining days. It was a mining town that really thrived in the early days of like Utah.
Wow.
And
I like mining towns. They're always very interesting history and stuff, so I'm excited.
We can go see it.
I know. It's like, how far?
Right after you take me to see the Sandlot.
Oh, yeah. We learned that was here, too.
And I still haven't been. But anyways, without further ado, I'd like to get into this one. I think this is going to be an interesting one, and this is something we have never done before because I don't think we've ever tackled a ghost town before.
We haven't, and I am super duper excited.
Okay, well, here we go. Spring Canyon, also called Stores, is a ghost town in Carbon County, Utah, United States. In 1912, Jesse Knight purchased 1,600 acres of coal land and began developing a mine and a company town. Knight named the town Stores after the mine superintendent. The name of the town was then changed to Spring Canyon in 1924. 1,000 tons of coal per day were mined from 1924 until 1943, and during World War II, coal production peaked at 2,000 tons of coal per day. By 1946, the need for coal had diminished, and the people began to leave. Although the area where Spring Canyon Coal Company would develop a mine had been known for years as having a rich coal seam, it would be decades before commercial operations would be established. In the late 1800s, helper residents were often known to haul coal by wagons from an opening on the side of the mountain. A small mine was worked in Sow Belly Gulch by Teencombe Pratt in 1895 when he built a wagon road and began to haul coal back to Helper. Now, Helper is a city in Carbon County, Utah, approximately 110 miles southeast of Salt Lake City and 7 miles northwest of the city of Price. Around 1897, he bought the acreage, operating as a small coal mining venture until 1912. At the time, Jesse Knight and other investors in Provo, Utah, purchased the land and organized the Spring Canyon Coal Company. But who was Jesse Knight? Knight is a significant in Western American mining and entrepreneurial history because in several important ways he differed from the typical robber baron capitalist of the late 19th century Gilded Age. His success, like theirs, depended upon the skillful acquisition and management of such business variables as claims, labor, capital, technology, and government services, and also upon the development of cost-efficient integrated enterprises such as the Knight Investment Company. However, he also owned more patented mining claims in the Intermountain West than did his counterparts, and he was not inclined to engage in stock manipulation like many other mining entrepreneurs and railroad barons. His business methods, especially when dealing with his working men, were far more paternalistic and benevolent of those of the typical big businessmen of the era. While other company town and mine owners often exploited their workers, Knight treated his workers very fairly in his company town of Knightsville, Utah, which equipped with a meeting house, amusement hall, in school, instead of the usual hedonistic establishments of mining camp life. Although his philanthropy was not unique for the period, his generous gifts to Brigham Young University earned him the reputation as the, quote, patron saint of BYU. He also donated freely to his church and many church-related projects. Furthermore, his comfortable but unostentatious home in Provo, Utah, did not rival the extravagantly garnished mansions built by big businessmen from the San Francisco Nob Hill to New York Fifth Avenue. Nor did he seek high political office like mining kings George Hearst, James Fair, William Sharon, John P. Jones, Nathaniel Hill, Jerome B. Chaffee, Horace Tabor, William Clark, or Utah's Thomas Kearns, all of whom served in the Millionaires Club of the United States Senate. Knight was known by the moniker Uncle Jesse during his lifetime due to his image as a rich but giving uncle. In his writing, he expressed the belief that his money was for the purpose of doing good and building up his church. He regarded the matter as a, quote, trusted stewardship. As he once said, quote,
"The earth is the Lord's bank, and no man has a right to take money out of that bank and use it extravagantly upon himself."
Although he strayed from the LDS Church in his early years and briefly affiliated with the anti-Mormon Liberal Party in Utah, he was a devout member for most of his life and helped to save the LDS Church from financial ruin incurred from legal battles with the federal government over control of the Utah Territory and issues such as polygamy. After making his fortune in mining, he went on to develop settlement and industry in what is today southern Alberta. In 1901, Knight purchased 30,000 acres of land in Canada's Northwest Territories for $2.50 per acre. On this property, he established a ranch. He later went on to acquire another 226,000 acres of land near his ranch and established a town built around irrigation farming of sugar beets, which were then processed in a local sugar factory that Knight built. The settlement was named Raymond in honor of his son, Raymond Knight. Within 5 years, over 1,500 Latter-day Saints, mostly from Utah, had immigrated to the town of Raymond. The town was incorporated in 1903, and today, Knight is honored as the founder of Raymond, Alberta. The company began to develop some 2,000 acres of coal land and made plans to build a railroad to connect the mine in Spring Canyon with Denver and Rio Grande Railroad at nearby Helper. Starting with just about a half dozen miners, supervised by Provo ex-sheriff George Storrs, coal was first shipped to Helper via wagons. However, when the railroad was complete in October 1912, the mine began to make its first shipments on the train, which sported a brand new locomotive. Storrs also was the superintendent of the railroad as well as the mine. And coal was delivered from the mine to the canyon floor by way of an aerial tramway. Expanding quickly, a new steel tipple began to be built in March 1913, which had a capacity to handle some 2,000 tons of coal per day. By May, it was operational and was shipping about 600 tons per day with expectations of a quick growth. That same year, the private railroad was bought by the Denver and Rio Grande Railroad. Now, on a cold January morning in the mining community, a day that was like any other that had passed in Spring Canyon, an avalanche would occur, killing 3 people and destroying 4 houses in its way. Now, while mining towns were certainly rife with accidental deaths of all kinds, this is the one major act that would make the history books. As the mine expanded, the camp that supported it was also growing, taking the name of Stores after the mine superintendent. The company also built a number of 4-room cottages for the miners, which included hot and cold running water, a store, a hotel, and even a hospital. By the end of 1914, the mine was producing about 1,000 tons of coal per day. In 1919, a new surface tramway replaced the mine's aerial tramway. Now, Jesse Knight would die on March 14, 1921. In the following year, the company was sold to James B. Smith and his associate of San Francisco, California. In 1924, the town of Stores changed its name to Spring Canyon, perhaps because its first superintendent, George Stores, who had moved on and started his own company, had been indicted on mail fraud charges in connection with the promotion of his Great Western Coal Company in Gordon Creek Canyon. Those stores would later be cleared of the charges. The town would forever be known as Spring Canyon. By that time, the town boasted a population of approximately 1,100 people. By 1940, the Spring Canyon mine was ranked as the 4th largest producer in the state. Ever expanding, by 1948, the Spring Canyon Coal Company was also operating the Standard and Royal mines. However, the prosperity couldn't last forever, and by 1954, much of the coal had been depleted, and the Spring Canyon Coal Company shut down the vast majority of its operations, operating with just a skeleton crew. Most of the residents had left town, but the mine continued to operate until 1969, when it was closed. Unfortunately, just 6 years later in 1975, the entire town would be razed, leaving only parts of the tipple trestle. Today, all that is left of Spring Canyon Mining Company is a ghost town. Those who travel there can see some of the old mining remnants still in the canyon. As you reach the top, you will notice the locked gate, and the rest of the canyon is private property. Spring Canyon has been known to locals to be haunted, and stories have evolved throughout the years, including the popular ghost legend, the White Lady of Spring Canyon. There is a popular walking trail that follows the canyon and has towering bands of gray and tan sandstone, perfect for the adventurous folks who want to climb and rappel. It's a great way for people to go outdoors for a hike or even a climb, and if you have GPS, there's plenty of geocaching opportunities in the area. But remember, when you're in Spring Canyon and the sun starts to set on the horizon, maybe it's not your eyes playing tricks on you. Maybe that was indeed a lady in white that you saw out of the corner of your eye, watching you.
Wow, a ghost town? How freaking cool is that?
Right in the middle of old America, coal mining. It was a big industry, but this one stood out among so many other ones that I had looked up because apparently locals have been telling the story of the mysterious white lady for generations.
Yeah, that sounds super creepy. And how about that guy buying land for $2.50 an acre?
It was probably that was probably a little more back in, whatever it was in 19 something.
I know, it just sounded so crazy.
But there is so much more that we have left to go. I'm pretty sure you even have the original tales that have been passed down from generations of Utahans in their family.
I just might.
So, without further ado, let's take a break instead.
And now, Booze Crew, back to the show. West of Helper, Utah, in Carbon County, is Spring Canyon, a one-time coal mining mecca filled with ghost towns. Here, along this rugged path, surrounded by mountains, boulders, mining remnants, and the crumbling remains of once thriving buildings, roams an ethereal white lady. Before the mysterious white lady and the many coal miners who lived in this canyon, the area was long occupied by the Fremont Indians, who left behind numerous rock art panels. Other larger occupants, like dinosaurs, also left their marks in abundant large footprints, which have been found in many of the area coal mines. Carbon County changed dramatically when the Denver and Rio Grande Western Railroad began to seek a route from Denver to Salt Lake City in the late 1880s. As the railroad opened up the area, coal was discovered, and by the 19th century, the county was filled with coal mining camps. As prospectors searched the region for coal, more was discovered in Spring Canyon, and the first mine in the district was established in 1895 at Storrs. Over the next several decades, numerous mines and small settlements sprouted up in the canyon, including Standardville, Rains, Peerless, Mutual, and Latuda. Throughout the decades, the Spring Canyon District was called home to over 2,000 miners, businessmen, and their families, as the mines extracted almost 43 million tons of coal from the rugged hills through the 1960s. Though the mines brought people and prosperity to the region, they also brought tragedy and violence in mining explosions and significant strikes. But when Spring Canyon's heydays were over, it left behind only memories, scattered mining remnants, fading ghost towns, and legends, the most famous of which is that of the White Lady. Persisting for years, the legend has numerous variations that have been told of who this mysterious woman might have been. Though her identity may always be in question, it is interesting to note that women in mining equal to bad luck to virtually every miner in any mining camp a century ago. The superstition, having its roots in Europe, was powerful among immigrants, making up the vast majority of miners of the time. These miners believed that disaster and tragedy would follow if a woman visited the mine, and could cite instance after instance of true stories that had occurred. Though outsiders believed these instances were purely coincidental, the miners didn't think so. They became highly agitated if a female even got near a mining shaft, causing almost as much nervousness in the mine workers as did ghosts or Tommyknockers. Given the superstitious nature of the coal miners, it is not surprising that the legend of the White Lady has been told for so many years. The woman was believed to have lived in Latuda, about 7 miles west of Helper, on Spring Canyon Road. The mining camp, which started in 1917, when the Liberty Mine went into production, once boasted numerous homes, a post office, a school, a company store, mining offices, and about 400 people. One version of her history says that her husband was killed in the mine, and his body was never found. Others say that her husband and son were killed in a mining accident, leaving her alone with an infant daughter. The tale continues that her baby was later kidnapped, thrown into a wash, and drowned. Afterward, the woman lost her mind and soon died. Yet another version alleges that she lived in Peerless, another mining camp situated about 3 miles west of Helper, that thrived from 1917 to 1930. This account says that after her husband died from blood poisoning, and his death was not mining related, she and her infant child received no compensation and were destitute. Instead of allowing her baby to starve, she drowned it, lost her mind, and was institutionalized in a mental facility. Later, she escaped, returning to Peerless, where she would die. Another report says she was killed in a rock slide in Latuda, while a different story says that her child was killed in an avalanche, and she would later commit suicide. A final tale says that after her husband was killed in a mining accident, the company refused to compensate her. After a confrontation with the mine officials, she was so angry and driving so fast that she drove off the narrow road and was killed. Though the truth of her life will probably never be known, for whatever reason, she continues to make her presence known within the canyon. Some say she seeks revenge against the mining company or against those who kidnapped her infant daughter. Dressed in all white, others say that she searches for her lost child, specifically in the canyon wash. Interestingly, this sounds very much like another popular legend, that of La Llorona, who has been seen haunting rivers and streams, also looking for her lost child, throughout the Southwest for centuries. In any case, numerous sightings of the spectral lady in white have been reported throughout the years. Some of the earliest accounts say that she was known to float around the entrance of the mines, luring miners into their vast depths, ensuring inevitable disaster. Other tales are not so sinister, saying that instead of enticing them into the mines, she would appear to warn them to leave to avoid some kind of accident. Allegedly, she has been seen several times around the entrance of Latuda Mine, inside the mine, and near the old Liberty Mine office. By the 1960s, the legend was so well known that the teenagers often came to Latuda Mine office at night to tell ghost stories and catch a glimpse of the spectral lady. On one occasion, though there is no evidence that the ghost ever appeared, the teenagers' visit resulted in disaster when one of them blew up the building, resulting in his imprisonment. Other reports tell of sightings of her walking around the abandoned town of Latuda, usually in the direction of the mining office, but always disappearing just before she would reach it. There are many variations of the story of the White Lady. A story told by Patty Waterman Jones reads, quote,
On February 16, 1927, Daniel Richard Grundevig was killed in a snowslide in Wyatts, Utah. He was buried more than 15 feet under the snow. He and Tony Ledger were miners from the Lion Coal Company and were walking the canyon to the powerhouse and were close to the mouth of Wyatt's mine. They were warned of the oncoming snowslide, but unable to get out of the way. Tony was found alive, but Richard was dead. The following October 16, 1927, Nina, the wife of Daniel Richard Grundevig, and my grandma Grundevig were visiting Nina's parents in Spring Canyon. When they were leaving, Nina told my grandma to get the kids back out of the car because she had to turn it around to go back home. The kids were Nina's 3 children, Sylvia, Dan, and Vaughn. Grandma's kids were my mom, who was about 4, and my Uncle Arnold, who was 3 months. Nina then proceeded to back off the road, and her car fell 70 feet down the side of a cliff. The car landed on top of her. She was taken to the Spring Glen Hospital, but never regained consciousness, and she died. She was buried in her wedding dress because they had only been married 7 years before, in 1920. Nina and Richard's kids were raised by her parents. One Memorial Day, my sister and I went to the Wellington Cemetery and stopped at my Aunt Valoy's home. We had pictures from Mom and Dad in boxes and knew our aunt would know how they fit into the Waterman and Grundevig side of the family. While looking through the pictures, she came to Nina's picture and commented,
"Oh, the White Lady."
Georgia and I just looked at her in surprise. She said,
"You didn't know that she is the White Lady of Spring Canyon?"
And she told us the story that my grandma had shared with her of what had happened.
Another story, told by Tony Slavinsky Sr. to his family and friends in the 1970s, goes, quote,
"In Spring Canyon, there was a family which consisted of a man and a wife and 2 children, 1 boy and 1 girl. The husband and son were both killed in a mine accident. This left the woman to fend for herself and her infant daughter. 3 to 4 weeks later, the woman was washing clothes in the Spring Canyon wash, and someone kidnapped the baby. The baby was thrown into the wash and then drowned. The story says that the woman lost her mind and died, and that she still searches the wash for the baby and seeks revenge for his death."
And one last story, told to a Janice O'Green Aberly by Claudette Lambert, a retired coal miner from Spring Canyon. This story was told in the 1950s, but allegedly, the story originally took place in the 1940s. Quote, "There was a couple living in the town of Peerless, next to a store that had overalls displayed in the window. The couple had 1 infant child. The woman lost her husband in a mine, but not due to a mining accident, but from blood poisoning caused by an infected tooth. Since the death was not mine-related, the mining company did not have to pay for any compensation or benefits to the widow. At this time, there were no welfare programs available. Destitute and starving, the woman did not want her child to suffer and starve to death, so she took it down to the wash and drowned it. The woman then lost her mind and was instituted in the Provo mental facility. She eventually escaped by means unknown and returned to Peerless to find her child. She eventually died, and to this day, they say she still searches for her baby." While the legend of the White Lady is just one tale Carbon County spotlights frequently, just remember that you should travel to Spring Canyon to try catching a glimpse for yourself. Use extreme caution around the old mining areas so as not to be harmed in your ghost hunting expeditions. If you're only curious, there are all sorts of websites and videos that talk more in depth about the canyon's history and the roots of the White Lady's origin. Plus, All you have to do is ask locals, and each one can tell you the version that they heard growing up. Carbon County is full of spooky nooks and crannies. From Tommyknockers to secret tunnels to ghost stories, these towns have heard it all and continue to remember their history for years to come through the legends and lore that have been passed down from generation to generation.
And that is the story of the ghost town of Spring Canyon, Utah. And apparently these stories have been being passed from multiple generations, and there's tons of different variations of them, but they all seem to include the same thing, which is the White Lady.
And how crazy is it that every story involves a baby?
Yeah, that is, it's kind of crazy that a lot of them are like the baby dies in the wash, so I'm kind of like directed towards thinking that maybe that actually happened.
Right, absolutely. I mean, if it comes up in that many stories, and I mean, the way her husband died and stuff, all that changes, but there's pretty much one thing that stays consistent, so that makes me think.
Absolutely. So we got to get to the point of this. And, I mean, we're not going to be able to do any EVPs or anything because we still don't have our equipment. So remember, that is international moving. And what was the other place? Make sure you let them know. But we're going to have to just get right to it. And I have to ask you the question.
Is it real?
And I'm not going to ask myself because I just asked the question. But do you think that there could be anything to this White Lady of Spring Canyon?
I definitely think that there could be hauntings going on in the town, whether it's specifically a white lady or, I don't know, any spirit could be roaming there. It's a mining town. So many accidents happen. Many, many people died. And, you know, it's been over a century of people in this town, you know, passing away, living and dying, and, you know, tragedies happening and all these things. So I could definitely see that there is something going on there, for sure. So yes, I do think this place is haunted. What about you?
Well, thanks for asking me. I think there is I actually don't believe in any of the stories.
Okay.
Not one of them. But even though I'm saying that, I do believe something is out there.
Okay.
Because I actually think that being a mining town way back at the turn of the century, people were murdered and raped and like died in accidents, and I'm sure there was a wife who got denied like welfare and probably killed somebody or herself. But there are too many different possible deaths that could have occurred there for me to say that nothing is out there, not to mention that every story has the same occurrence of a white lady being spotted, and people to this day still claim that they see her. So I do believe it's real. I just don't believe any of the local lore stories, that's all.
Well, and it's crazy too that generations of people talk about this town being haunted, whether it's specifically a white lady or whatever. There is something being talked about there.
Well, that's because it's been passed down, but that means that this place is gonna get
the big old seal of approval.
And yeah, so Spring Canyon, Utah, if you're ever out this way, maybe we should go check it out.
I definitely would like to go check it out. There was a couple town names in there I definitely recognized from the
Price.
area.
But don't ever stop at McDonald's at Price. It's terrible.
Oh man, it was so bad.
So maybe that it is that close, because when I was writing all this up, I noticed Price also. And I mean, it's not like a 5-minute drive, but it's close enough. I bet it's all out there where we drove through.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I don't know. We have loved exploring and getting to know this place and getting out and checking out that all of this beautiful state has to offer, and we've definitely been enjoying that. So maybe that'll be on our list.
Maybe. We'll see. Maybe when it cools off, though, because that's out towards the desert area.
Yeah, it's hot.
But that's going to lead us to the end of this episode, and where can they find us?
They can find us on Instagram at forthebooze_podcast and on Facebook at forthebooze.
You can also find us on Twitter, or I'm sorry, not Twitter anymore. Now it's like X or something weird. Find us on X. God, it doesn't even sound right. Whatever, For the Booze. You can also find us on YouTube at, you guessed it, For the Booze. And also remember to check us out on TikTok at For the Booze. We haven't been posting since we moved. We just kind of been feeling shafted by the moving company. But we are going to get back on it. We're not going anywhere. We will continue to do that. And something we forgot to mention last week is reviews. We need your reviews. We need to move up. So if you haven't left a review, 5 stars is all we accept. No, I'm just kidding.
Stop.
We just want you to review the show. 5 stars, rate and review anywhere you listen to the show. It does do a lot. And we are trying to, we're trying to do things with this.
We are. We'd like to, move up, be better, and create a better show for all of you listening. Because we love you guys.
And we're more centrally located in the country now, so it'd be easier to make a big meetup or something. I'm just saying.
Yes.
So, I guess that's it.
I guess that's it. So, thank you everybody so much for listening, and we will see you in the next one.
Bye.